Milk. It's in you right now, possibly. Everyone everywhere is drinking it. It is actually what you are of bones made of. But why do the milk that they secrete? Well, a million, billion, trillion, billion years ago, there was no small rats until this one came out of a lizard's egg. Super well and fast. Only problem is, there's these huge dragon things that want to eat you, and you're basically fucked. But how do you get the energy to run around and stuff? The sun, idiot. So why don't you hide around in these holes and package this sun energy into, I don't know, a white milky milk that gets you places and feeds your kids? No other foods will ever be necessary ever again, right? It sounded really stupid and dumb and stupid to all those lizards until something came down and killed all those lizard bird things. So now the land is yours to conquer. So they did. Rats infested the entire world, eventually learning to grow bigger, shed their fur, create religion, walk on two legs, and now watch videos. But there was still one thing that connected these new super evolved rats. Although it was mostly consumed by babies until one day, they're really smart rats. They all collectively looked at these bigger rats and thought, cow bigger than me. I drink me milk cow, then milk cow, then me get way bigger like cow big. So they started milking out fast enough to realize this shit tastes good. He would then proceed to shut out of his ass at light speed, and then he had the great idea of just continuing to do this over and over and over again until one day it just stopped. Wow, this is great, he must have been thinking, until eventually he'd now start blasting out of his ass and his mouth, only until realizing that the milk had turned into a solid white thing called solid milk, brown and mushy, so they'd salt on it and sucked it up, which indeed it did suck. Eventually, they'd find a ton of interesting ways to keep their hard milk solid. The only reason that anybody traveled upwards to actually see how long they could last their cheese, which helped out when food got scarcer. Eventually, these rats would form huge coalitions, including this one, that is the best in the world. They had to be the best at everything. I looked at cheese like a challenge. If it's cool enough, you don't need as much salt, and a ton of cool little guys will live in there and make it taste better and interesting. They'd look up at the skies and think, ah yes, milk. They'd write books describing how and where and when and how long the best cheese would make imaginable. This was great, but now all those guys are gone and dead, and everything sucks, and everyone wants to die for a long time. Very little progress is made in everything. Now, everyone wants to go everywhere all the time, but unless you're fishing, there's very little food to eat. Everything sucks, of course, until an old friend milk would be the best thing since hard milk to keep them flourishing. Not only did they use the old stuff, they'd make hard, pressed together cheese and very shredded non-cheese milk to brave the way there, helping everyone, which was also their primary goal, eventually finding a new strange land that obviously no one had set foot on. Well, these guys set foot on them, and they all ate big pumpkin pies over the Thanksgiving dinner, until eventually they introduced this new stuff to these guys, and they said, wait, no, look at this stuff. It turns out there's not much milk in the Americas, so they turned to milking nuts and beans and plants and stuff, and yet somehow they still weren't done. There was this great wonder material that would fall from the sky, and it was snowy and almost cream-like in a certain way. A lot of people thought of combining the two things. It wasn't until the 1700s whenever people actually found out a real way to do it. So they thought, great, now let's build all these machines powered by steam and stuff to make as much milk as possible, which they did, which is a genius idea, which is just absolutely genius. Great idea. Now even human milk was getting phased out by some, mostly by marketers who wanted women to be fully dependent on their formulas. But the 1900s aren't only known as the dairy age because of this, but the actual height of the entire industry came when humanity finally landed on the moon, successfully domesticating its cheesy, ashy environment. And now today, with milk consumption up all the way and more plans to discover the Milky Way, dairy is truly the only thing that connects all people. As we launch into those lactose galaxies, we are truly not just reaching out somewhere else, but back inside of us, into our past, and patting those little rats all that time ago, and feeding them their dairy milk rations.